So hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spy Knight, and in these podcasts, I like talking all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing Red One, this new Christmas film. So, let's get into it, shall we? Red One, as I already said, is this new Christmas film which stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson alongside Chris Evans, Lucy Liu, and J.K. Simmons. And I would be lying if I said I was excited about watching this film. I'd even go as far as to say I'd be lying that I was interested in watching this film, because the trailers looked terrible to me. And when The Rock and Chris Evans are leading a Christmas movie, I don't have much anticipation, because The Rock seems like a very nice guy whenever I see him in interviews, but I do not think he's a good actor. And Chris Evans, I think is a good actor, but not a great actor. Some of the choices he's made and, some of the roles he's taken over the past however many years since he finished doing his work in the MCU has not been great. So with them two leading the film, I didn't have much expectations. But I knew I was going to go and see this film at the cinema because it's a new Christmas film, and Christmas is my favourite time of the year. And I like a good, fun Christmas movie. Heck, I like a rubbish, fun Christmas movie. Deck the Halls, which stars Matthew Broderick and Danny DeVito, is not a good film. I'll even go as far as to say it's a terrible movie. I remember doing a review of that about 2 years ago on this channel now, and I did not enjoy watching that film. But then, I think last Christmas, I caught a bit of it, and I actually quite enjoyed it. It's a rubbish film. It's not a good, well-made film at all, but it's fun to watch. Same with the Santa Claus 2, which has got so many problems. Or Santa Claus the Movie, which is a very strange film. I might review that this Christmas, actually. But yeah, Santa Claus the Movie I don't think really works. But again, I enjoy watching it because there's something about it which makes you feel Christmassy. And I was hoping to get that Christmas feel from watching this film. But again, I didn't have much hope. And I'll tell you one thing which did annoy me. Before I get into my thoughts on the film, before I get into all my opinions on this film, and I have quite a few opinions on it, I have quite a few thoughts on it, I'll tell you one thing which did annoy me. The fact that the film released on November the 8th in the UK. Why are Christmas films releasing that early? I love Christmas. I listen to Christmas songs from the middle of November onwards. Just this morning, I was listening to a bit of Wham, a bit of Wizard, and a bit of Band-Aid. The original Band-Aid. Not only with the Band-Aids, the original Band-Aid. Do They Know It's Christmas from 1984? It's still the best Band-Aid. Load of tangent there. Anyway, you get the point I'm making. I love Christmas. But when you release a Christmas movie on November the 8th in the cinemas, you are asking for your film to bomb at the box office. I'm sorry, but you just are. And I'm not going to go watch a Christmas film at the cinema on November the 8th. I'm just not going to do that. So I waited about a week or so to watch this film in the cinema. So I waited till after the middle of November, because then I thought it was a good time. And I went to go and see the film yesterday on the 18th of November, which I thought was, like I already said, a good time to watch a Christmas movie at the cinema. So that did annoy me a bit with its release date. And also, it kind of told me that the studio didn't have much faith in the film if they're releasing a Christmas film at the start of November. Something doesn't sit right there. However, Dwayne Johnson, in his infinite wisdom, and again, I like Dwayne Johnson as a person. Whenever I watch him on a talk show or in an interview, he seems like a really great guy. Regardless of some reports about how he is on sets, which came out a couple of months ago now. Apparently shows up like several hours late to some sets. But regardless of what some reports may say about him, in interviews, he seems like he loved what he does, and he seems passionate about film, But Dwayne Johnson, in his infinite wisdom, compared this film to Oppenheimer during the press tour, as reported by The Independent, which reported, As he watched Oppenheimer, this is what it said in the article in the Independent, quoting, we're talking about Dwayne Johnson comparing this film to Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer, which came out last year, won Best Picture last year, and grossed almost $1 billion at the box office last year. This is what Dwayne Johnson said when he was comparing this film to Oppenheimer. As he watched Oppenheimer, a 3-hour epic about physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer and the psychological toll of creating the atomic bomb during World War II, Johnson thought, holy shit, Red One on this screen and with this technology could be game over. Whoa, Dwayne Johnson was comparing, Oppenheimer to Red One, and that's quite a big comparison, so that got me excited. The possibility that Red One could be the cinematic event of the year. That little bit of press which Dwayne Johnson did made me more excited about the film than any of the trailers or any promotional footage I'd seen from the film elsewhere. So that, with all that excitement, with Dwayne Johnson comparing this film to Oppenheimer, I went to the cinema yesterday with a spring in my step, hoping to have a fun time with this film, even if I didn't think it was going to be great. I was hoping for a fun, rubbish Christmas movie, maybe on the same lines as Deck the Halls. And the Google plot synopsis, or should I say the quote-unquote plot synopsis for this film, goes as follows. When a villain kidnaps Santa Claus from the North Pole, an ELF, which stands for Extremely Large and Formidable Operative, joins forces with the world's most accomplished tracker to find him and save Christmas. And that's pretty much all you need to know about Red One before seeing it. And honestly, I thought this movie was absolutely awful. It might be one of the worst Christmas movies I have ever seen, because it commits the biggest crime that no Christmas movie should commit, and that is, it does not feel Christmassy. It does not feel like a Christmas movie. Sure, there's all this Christmas imagery in there, like you see the North Pole, there's polar bears at one point, you see stockings, and there's a Christmas tree shown. There's quite a few Christmas trees in this film actually, but at the same time, Christmas imagery doesn't get across the Christmas feel to me. Your film's actually got to feel Christmassy. It's got to have joy in there. It's got to have magic. It's got to have this wondrous, musical score which makes you feel Christmassy. It's got to have that sort of musical score where every time you hear pieces of music from the Christmas film, you instantly get those Christmas feels. Like whenever you hear the music to The Polar Express, say all about that film, but Alan Silvestri's musical score to that film is perfect in my opinion at getting across those Christmas feels. John Devaney's score to Elf. I'm not the biggest fan of Elf. I think it's a fine film. I'm just not the biggest fan of it. But whenever I hear the musical score to that film, I get those Christmas feels. Same with Arthur Christmas. Whenever I hear Hy Gregson Williams' score to that film, I get the Christmas feels. And same with Edward Scissorhands, which isn't, a full-on Christmas film, but has this Christmas section to it. And whenever I hear the music that plays during the ice sculpture scene, if you see an Edward Scissorhands, you'll probably know what scene I'm talking about. Whenever I hear that piece of music by Danny Elfman, I get the Christmas feels. But Henry Jackman's score, and I like Henry Jackman as a composer, he's a good composer, but his score to this film sounds like the music you would get on a Christmas theme park ride. It does not sound like a proper musical score, and it doesn't give you those Christmas feels like any good musical score to a Christmas film should do. But at the same time, the Christmas feels from a Christmas movie isn't just dependent on the musical score. It shouldn't just be dependent on the musical score. The film itself should make you feel Christmassy. It should have joy in there, wonder, magic, comedy that actually works. But this film's got none of that. None of it was joyful to watch. In fact, I would say it was quite dull to watch. I was unbelievably bored, and I hate using the word bored, but when I'm reviewing a film I don't like, I'm going to use that word. I was unbelievably bored with a capital B watching this film in the cinema. Like, moments in, I was bored. As soon as we got introduced to the North Pole, I was like, no, I don't believe in any of this. I'm not buying into any of the rest of the film, because I don't believe in the core setting of the film, because the North Pole is completely CGI. You know, I was sat there and I was like, oh, I missed the way the North Pole looked in the Santa Claus movies, or in Santa Claus the movie, because the North Pole was done by set and was done by, actually had real people in those scenes. There were people playing the elves in those films. But in this film, the elves, at least I assume they're elves, I'm not entirely sure what they are, the creatures that work in the North Pole are all CGI. And I'm like, what is this? Who thought this was a good idea? Genuinely, who went into this film and went, actually, no, well, let's not cast anyone as elves. Instead, let's have these weird creatures that work in Santa's workshop. It just doesn't make any sense. And the whole of the North Pole is CGI in this film. And I was watching on the cinema screen, I'm like, it looked so bad, the CGI. You know, it looks like the sort of, it looks like the sort of video game graphics you would get in a video game from like the early 2000s. The CGI in this film is horrific, and there's so much of it. The film is so dependent on terrible CGI. I mean, people complain about CGI in Marvel films, or in superhero movies, or in big blockbusters in general over the past couple of years. But you watch the CGI in this film and you're like, yeah, Marvel CGI over the past however many years looks 10 times better than the CGI in this film. Christ, the CGI is so bad, and there's so much of it, which is why I'm focused on it so much. You know, one of the main characters in this film is this polar bear, which I think is called Garcia. You know, he's probably the best character in the film, which is not a great thing about the movie. The fact that I came away from this film and my favourite character was a completely CGI character where every time he showed up on screen he annoyed me. Not a great thing about this film. Actually, he wasn't my favourite character, but he's my second favourite character. So yeah, I much preferred watching this polar bear over Dwayne Johnson and Chris Evans in the film, but I'll get on to that very shortly. I'll get on to how good Dwayne Johnson and Chris Evans are in the movie. But this polar bear keeps showing up, and he's terrible CGI with the polar bear, and I'm like, who thought that having a polar bear as the main character, as one of the main characters, or one of the main supporting characters in this film, was a good idea? I don't know, because it doesn't work. And there's so much CGI in this film, which is terrible. And apparently the film's budget was something like $250 million. Where did that money go? Did it go on the bloody getting these actors for the film? Sorry, but I get annoyed when a film has a big budget and you can't see the budget when you're watching it. Especially when, like, it's got this much CGI and the CGI is looking terrible. I mean, terrible. This film wants to be this big, exciting action Christmas blockbuster. But the problem is, all these action sequences in the film are so dependent on CGI and have obvious stunt doubles as well. Like, there's this chase sequence early on in the film in the North Pole. It looked so fake. I didn't believe in any of it. The CGI was so lazy there. Then there's this sequence at one point that takes place in what looks like Hawaii. I'm not sure if it was Hawaii. It wasn't really paying much attention to why they were going to this sand, this location that basically looked like Hawaii. But anyway, they go to this location, let's say it's Hawaii, and there's this fight sequence with these snowmen there. It's shown a little bit in the trailers, and again, the CGI was so poor, and the use of stunt doubles was so obvious. And I'm not usually one of those people who can tell when a stunt double is used in a film. But I could tell quite a few times when Chris Evans didn't want to do something in the fight sequence with these snowmen, and they got a stunt double instead during that section of the film. And sticking on with that section of the film, sticking on with the section that looks like it took place in Hawaii, I'm not sure why it's in this film. There is no reason for them to go to that location whatsoever. To be honest, it probably would have worked better if they used a completely different location. Heck, a location that perhaps would have had snow, because there were snowmen in that sequence. I still don't quite understand who thought it was a good idea to put snowmen on sand. Like, was that meant to be funny? Because I didn't find it funny whatsoever. None of this film was funny. There's so many problems I had with it, and the comedy is just, it's just another. But going back onto what I was saying, there's a whole section of the film which takes place in Hawaii, and I was sat there going, why are we here in the film? I was sat there thinking, what is the point of being at this location? It felt like the filmmakers and the cast, it felt like the filmmakers put it in the apparent script that they had for this film because they wanted to go to Hawaii and have a bit of a nice holiday there whilst they were making this film. That's what it felt like. It felt like the Hawaii section of the film, as I'm calling it. During that section, the actors got to have a nice holiday because Lucy Liu shows up in that section, and from what I remember in the film, and in all fairness, I don't remember much because it's quite a forgettable film, but from what I remember in the film, Lucy Liu was in a completely different part of the world 5 minutes before that scene. And I'm like, what? Why were they in Hawaii? It was infuriating, that section to watch. That section really didn't feel like Christmas. It felt like I was watching, I don't know, an outtake from a Fast and Furious movie. And during that sequence as well, there's all these women in bikinis walking about on the beach, and they're all like supermodels, and I'm like, what is the point of any of this? And the answer is, there isn't. There isn't a point. They just wanted to go to Hawaii for this section of the film so they could have a nice holiday and have a bit of a break, relax in the pool. But that section really got on my nerves. And let's go on to the performances, shall we? And talk about the main characters. All the performances, actually I take that back, almost all the performances in this film are pretty bad. J.K. Simmons is the only good performance in the film, in my opinion. His performance as Santa was good enough. It's still not a great performance and there were quite a few moments when I was watching this film, I was like, I don't know why, but I get the feeling J.K. Simmons doesn't actually want to be here. I don't quite understand why he is, but, he's not bad in the film. I've seen him do better performances elsewhere, but he's not bad, Compared to everyone else in the film, he's doing a good job. Because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, one of our finest actors of our generation, that was sarcasm there. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is awful in the film. Every single time he shows up on screen, he looks bored. And he's doing the exact same performance he does here that he does in Fighting With My Family, and that he does in any of the Fast and Furious films, and then he does in pretty much any film he's in. I haven't seen Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson much. Actually, I have seen quite a few films, but I just forget that I have because he's not a good actor. And, he's doing the same performance in this that he was doing in Fighting With My Family. But in Fighting With My Family, he's playing himself. So anyway, that's the only time I liked him in a film, by the way, when he played himself, because I do not think he's a good actor. And he shows up in this film, and he just looks bored. And every single time he showed up, I was bored with him. And Chris Evans in this film acts like a spoiled toddler. He's really annoying to watch. And I like Chris Evans. I'm not a big fan of Marvel movies, but I think he does a good job playing Captain America. And I enjoyed him in Knives Out. But I did not like him in this film. No. And then you go on to Lucy Liu, who really feels like she's phoning it in, as do all the performances in this film. And the characters are very forgettable. This film's got a villain, which I didn't even realise was in it until I was watching the film. Like, the villain's not being in the trailers, at least as far as I remember. Again, the trailers I didn't think were any good, but I saw the trailers quite a lot for this film over the past couple of months when I've been going to the cinema. It's one of those films that I keep seeing the trailer for, and from what I remember, the villain's not actually in any of the trailers. Again, I might be wrong there, but I was really surprised to find out who the villain was in the film. And then I was also, I wasn't too surprised, but at the same time, it was kind of funny walking out the film, and I was like, you know what? I completely forgot what the villain was. I only remember who the villain was because before I did this review today, I did a bit of looking up on IMDb who was in this film, and, to look up who was involved in the making of this film, who did the music and everything like that. And I was like, oh, looking at the cast, oh yeah, that person was in it, and that person played the villain. Well, I completely forgot this film had a villain, and I only watched it yesterday. I didn't watch it that long ago, and the villain is awful. Dwayne Johnson's character has got nothing to him. I mean, we're meant to feel something for him because he's giving up his role in the North Pole. But I'm like, I don't care that you're giving up your role. You know, I don't care. As soon as he came on screen, I'm like, all I'm seeing here is Dwayne Johnson. That's all I'm seeing. And Chris Evans is playing one of those characters that eats and drinks like a pig. He eats whatever and drinks whatever he wants. But he still looks like Chris Evans. Inexplicably. I don't understand how that works. I hate characters in films that eat and drink whatever they want and then end up looking like movie stars, because they are. But then it doesn't make sense why they eat and drink whatever they want. It just really got on my nerves. I was like, yeah, the way we introduced the Chris Evans' character, or the way we learn about him, we see him in his flat, in his apartment, and he's drinking in the bathtub, he's eating whatever he wants, you know. And I'm like, yeah, I don't believe you actually are. You know, you look like Chris Evans. You're doing alright. You're quite a handsome person. I don't believe that you're eating and drinking like a pig. I just don't believe it. So yeah, that was another thing that annoyed me. And another thing that annoyed me was there were large sections of this film where it's snowing, or where you see snow on the ground, but no one is ever covered by snow. And that sounds like a small thing, but when everything else is annoying you in the film, you start picking up on all these other sort of nitpicky details, and you're like, wait, that doesn't work as well, that doesn't work. And the snow thing really got on my nerves, because there was so many times in the film when it was snowing, but you could tell that the snow was just added in post, because none of the actors are getting snow on their hair. And usually when you go out on a walk and it's snowing, you get a bit of snow on you. You know, whether on your coat, or on your hair, or on your face, or whatever. You get the point I'm making. But you don't see that with any of the characters in this film, and that also really annoyed me, because again, it just felt like lazy filmmaking. So much of this film just felt lazy, and so much of it felt like they didn't have the actors for that long time, so they're just adding in a lot in post-production, a lot of CGI in post-production. It felt like the director, I think it's Jake Kasdan who directed the film, I'm not really familiar with him as a director, but it felt like he was just saying to the actors, don't worry about this, you know, about this action sequence, we'll just, you know, we'll fix it all in post. We'll fix it all in post. Don't worry. We've got a big budget because this is from Prime Video or whatever. It's from MGM, which is owned by Prime Video now. So we'll just fix it all in post because Prime Video's got all this money. But I don't know where the money went with this movie. Genuinely, I don't know where the money went. And another thing, the ending of the film, I didn't quite get. But it was so cheesy at the same time. And I verbally eye-rolled at the end. Oh, the ending. Oh, I mean, I didn't hate the film. Which may surprise people as to my reaction. I just thought it was a really bad film. I hated myself that I went to go and see it. But I found the film to be so dull that I didn't get invested in any of it. And I do think you have to be invested in something to hate it. And I didn't hate this film. But at the same time, I hated the ending, because it felt like I was trying to do something. And if it did that thing, I might have liked it. But instead, it just went the stereotypical, cheesy, Christmas blockbustery fashion that really didn't work for me. And like I said already, I didn't hate the film, you know? I just thought it was awful. Because in order for me to hate it, I do think I would have had to have some emotional connection to it. But the reason I'm so annoyed and I got so uppity in this review about this movie, the reason I got so worked up in my review of this film, was because with this cast, it had the opportunity to be something that was, yeah, silly but fun to watch. A rubbish, fun Christmas film like Deck the Horses. But it's not. It's just a bunch of nothing. And I tell you what, it feels really disingenuous and deceitful as well. It feels like the directors of this film, the filmmakers behind this movie, are trying to cash in on the commercialization of Christmas. And I don't like when films are blatantly trying to do that. There are some films which do it quite well. Like Home Alone 2, I think that's trying to cash in on the commercialisation of Christmas, but I actually think it works quite well. But in this film, it rubbed me up the wrong way. And I did get to a certain point in the movie where there was so much product placement at one bit. I'm like, oh, come on, you're not even trying to hide it here. You're not even trying to. It just... it feels disingenuous, and I don't like when films feel disingenuous. I don't like when films are being deceitful. They advertise the film as something like a fun, exciting Christmas action blockbuster. That's what this film was advertised as. But it did not deliver. Instead, it did the opposite, It didn't film with any joy, which any Christmas film should do. It didn't have any magic in it. It had all performances which were, well, most of the performances were phoned in. The characters were pretty unlikable for the most part. The only good character being Santa Claus in the film, because he was played by J.K. Simmons. And the polar bear character's not awful, but he did annoy when he came on screen because of the look of the CGI, and there was way too much CGI in the film. And don't even start on the jokes. Every single one of the jokes in this film is terrible. There was one joke that I slightly chuckled at early on the film regarding a reindeer, but it was a really cheap joke at that. And yeah, almost all the jokes in this film are terrible. I didn't laugh really at all. The story, couldn't really tell you what it is because it gets so convoluted, and it's terribly written, terribly made, and just one big waste of time. I'm not sure why it... Actually, no, I do know why it exists. I was about to say I'm not sure why it exists. I do know why it exists. They're trying to cash in, as I've already said, on the commercialisation of Christmas. But not in a good way. I mean, I'm not saying that's a good thing anyway, but when it comes to this film, it feels like they're trying to... It doesn't feel good, There's something about this film which feels Christmassy. It just feels dull, deceitful, and disingenuous. And that is why I ultimately didn't like it. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Red 1... I'm going to say it's a 2 out of 10. I'm giving it a 2 out of 10 because it did have some redeeming features. If I was to talk about some positives with the film, there's a section with Krampus, which wasn't the worst to watch, although it did feel like it was some test footage from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which Peter Jackson scrapped because of how terrible and pathetic everything looked. Didn't look good, but the Krampus section I didn't think was awful, and there were some nice Christmas messages in there. But they feel like they're being spoon-fed to, it feels like the filmmakers are going, okay, just in case we didn't get across the Christmas message just then, let's get it across again, and let's get it across again, just in case, let's keep spoon-feeding you the bloody message. Oh, it's just, I'm bored talking about it. This is a review I wasn't looking forward to because I love talking about Christmas movies, and I wanted to come out of this movie feeling all Christmassy and feeling like, yes, now I'm ready to review Christmas movies on this channel. But I'm not. Hence why I've got barely any Christmas decorations behind me, apart from that Christmas Ewok, which I found just before I did this review. Hence why I'm wearing my least favourite Christmas jumper, and hence why I am acting like a bit of a Grinch in this review. And I love Christmas. Christmas is my favourite time of the year. And I want to, every single time I review a Christmas movie, be all joyful. But this movie brought out the Grinch in me. Brought out the Scrooge in me. And I don't like it when Christmas films do that, Because it just feels so disingenuous. Nothing about the film is joyful or fun. And it just feels fake. I hate that it exists. Yeah. But I don't hate it because I don't feel I got anything invested in it. I just thought it was a bunch of rubbish. Yeah. Absolutely terrible. And as what he said, perhaps one of the worst Christmas films I have ever seen. Whew, it's bad. And I can't quite believe that The Rock compared it to Oppenheimer. But then again, it's 2024 and stranger things have happened. And so, all in all, as I've already said, and as I'm going to say once more in this podcast today, Red 1 is a 2 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen Red One and you enjoyed it, please don't let my feelings on the film take away from your thoughts or feelings whatsoever. If you enjoyed the film, that's great. I'm super jealous for you. I'm just giving my thoughts to it, and it's all just a bit of fun at the end. It's only a movie. If you enjoyed it, super jealous, like I've already said. But if you didn't as well, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Whatever your thoughts are on Red One, please let me know in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like and subscribe on this video. I look forward to many more videos and many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. As I already said, thank you as always for watching or listening to this podcast. And I suppose that's it. So I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.